Alright guys, today we're going to go over the study guide 1.3, 1.4. Remember, it's all about factoring. You're going to use the GPS. That's on the board. And if you're not sure what that looks like, I'm going to put a picture of it up here. So here's the GPS. Remember, if you ever get lost, that's what you're going to be looking for. Looking for something in common first. If there is something in common, you take out the common term. Then you count the number of terms. Right now, we're only dealing with 2 terms and 3 terms. In the future, we'll deal with 4 terms. If there's 2 terms, it should be super easy because it better be perfect squares. You better have something in common. 3 terms, that's the factors of the first term, factors of the last term, check the middle using FOIL. Pretty easy. Alright, so number 1, x squared minus 5x plus 6. Remember, it's 3 terms, so you break them out of the first term. The last term could be 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. Now remember, because it's a positive 6, the signs have to match. So 2 and 3 is what I want. So my answer is going to be x minus 2, x minus 3, because I want to get negative 5. That's your answer. Remember, if there's no equal sign, you don't add anything. And when it says factor, your answer is in sets of parentheses. 2, I have p squared plus 2p plus 4. Well, how do I get p squared? Well, p and p. How do I get 4? 1 and 4, or 2 and 2? Well, 1 and 4 adds up to be 5, so there's no way that's a choice. 2 and 2 adds up to be 4. That doesn't work. There are no factors of 4 I'm missing, so that means this one is not factorable. Now, guys, remember on the study guide, you have to show me this factoring of the first term and the factoring of the last term step. If you're going to put not factorable, you have to show me that you at least did some work to figure out that it wasn't factorable. That's it for 1 and 2. Alright, number 3, how do I get a squared? A and a. Remember, there's nothing in common, which is why I'm already going to the factors of the first term and the factors of the last term. How do I get 22? 1 and 22, or 2 and 11? Remember, I'm allowed to use this adding shortcut because the number in front of a squared is 1. Any other number, I can't use that shortcut, but I am. So 2 and 11 is 13. Remember, I want it to be negative 13, so I put a minus 2 and a minus 11. Remember, I'm allowed to do that because positive 22 means the signs just have to match. So that's it for 3. That's your answer right there. The 2 sets of parentheses together. Now, guys, make sure they're next to each other, not on top of each other, because if they're not next to each other, it does not mean multiplication. B squared plus 3b, that should say 3b on your study guide, minus 40. How do I get b squared? Well, b and b. How do I get 40? Negative 1 and 40, which is going to be 39, so that's not going to help me. Negative 2 and 20 is going to be 18. That's not going to help me. 3 doesn't work. Negative 4 and 10 is going to be 6, so that's not going to help me. Negative 5 and 8 is going to add up to be 3, so that's what I want. So put b minus 5 in parentheses, b plus 8 in parentheses, and that's my final answer. That's it. Same thing in number 5. Nothing is in common between all 3 of them, so I start away, x and x. How do I get negative 18? Well, negative 1 and 18, negative 2 and 9. Negative 2 and 9 is 7. Remember, if you ever get the right number but the wrong sign, you just flip both signs, and it'll give you what you want. So it's going to be x plus 2, x minus 9. That's it. 6. I have x squared plus 9x minus 36. I saw a lot of mistakes with this one because most people were just not finding the right factors for 36. So x and x, negative 1 and 36, negative 2 and 18, negative 3 and 12, and I get to stop at negative 3 and 12 because it adds up to be 9. So I put x minus 3 in parentheses, x plus 12. Remember, that's different than if I change that middle term, that changes everything. So it always has to work for the middle. And that's it for 7. 2 terms should be super easy because 2 terms says that it has to begin with a perfect square. Remember, it's perfect because I can break it down as x and x. It has to end with a perfect square. 6 and 6. And it better have a minus sign in the middle, which it does. So then I just get to add the square roots, x plus 6, subtract the square roots, x minus 6. That's it. It doesn't matter the order. You can put x minus 6 first, then x plus 6, and you'd still be the same answer. 8. X squared minus 24x plus 144. Now, guys, with number 8, remember, there's nothing in common between all 3, so I say x and x. Now, I'm going to start with 12 and 12 because 144 is perfect. That's me using the perfect square trinomial. So I'm using this one right here. I'm saying it begins and ends with a perfect square, so I'm going to guess the square roots first. You don't have to do that, but it's just what I'm going to do because it's a little bit easier. And look, 12 and 12 adds up to be 24. Remember, it's negative 24, so put x minus 12. X minus 12. That's your answer. Or you might see this. One set of parentheses squared. Both of those are okay. We'll use the second one a little bit later in a couple sections. All right, number 9, x squared plus 8x plus 16. Remember, begins with a perfect square, x and x. Ends with a perfect square, 4 and 4. I'm going to try the square roots first. Remember, 4 plus 4 adds up to be 8. So it is x plus 4, x plus 4. Remember, those match, so this could be your answer. I will take that for full credit. Or you could put x plus 4 squared. And that's it for number 9. Number 10 is actually the same thing as number 7. Very easy. X squared minus 36. Remember, perfect square to start, x and x. Perfect square to end, 6 and 6. There's a minus sign in the middle, so I say x plus 6, x minus 6. Done. That's it for 10. All right, number 11 is 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. Now that the number is bigger than 1, the adding shortcut doesn't work. So I have 2x and x, 1 and 3. I'm just going to guess 2x plus 1, x plus 3. I have to check it. I do the outside, I get 6x. The inside, I get 1x. Together, that's 7x. That's not what I want, so that is not the right combination. Now remember, order matters. So I can't say this is unfactorable until I put the 3 with the 2x, and I put the 1 with the x. So I have to actually try it both ways before. Now, if this one doesn't work, I stop and say it's unfactorable. But I can't say that yet. I do the outside to get 2x, the inside to get 3x. Together, that is 5x. That's what I want. So that's your answer. All right, number 12 is 4r squared plus 5r plus 1. Now, this one, you could have 1r and 4r and 2r and 2r. Make sure you have both options there, especially if you're going to end up saying it's not factorable. You got to have both options. So I'm going to guess 2r and 2r first. I do the outside, I get 2r. I do the inside, I get 2r. Together, that's 4r. That means it doesn't work. Now, because these two r's are the same, order does not really matter. So I don't have to guess 2r and 2r again. Now I have to guess 1r and 4r. So I do the outside to get 1r, the inside to get 4r. Together that's 5r. So that's what I want. Now remember, order doesn't matter. You could write it 4r plus 1 and r plus 1 as the second one. And you'll probably see that more often. You'll probably see that bottom one, but to me it really doesn't matter. Alright, so number 13, very similar. How do I get 11z? Well, it's 1z and 11z. How do I get negative 9? Well, it's negative 1 and 9, or negative 3 and 3. I'm just going to guess 11z minus 3, z plus 3. So I'm guessing negative 3 and 3 first. I do the outside to get 33z. I do the inside to get minus 3z. Together, that's 30z. That's not what I want. Alright? Now, before I cross off negative 3 and 3, I have to flip it, because order matters. That's if the number was different. So, if that was like 3 and 2, you'd have to flip it. But since 3 and 2 are the same, you don't have to. So I'm going to put minus 1. 11, I forgot the z. So I'm going to put 11z minus 1, z plus 9. I do the outside to get 99z, the inside to get minus z. Together it's 98z. Now what I want. So remember, I can't cross off negative 1 and 9 because they're different numbers, so I have to flip it. So I got to put 11z. This time I had to put it with the 9 and z with the 1. I do the outside to get 11z negative. The inside I get positive 9z. Together it's negative 2z. Now it's not the right number, but it's really close. It's just the wrong sign, so I just flip both signs. So my final answer is going to be 11z minus 9 and z plus 1. That's one of the reasons I like to keep my choices up, and I cross them off after I check them. So remember, guys, if you're going to leave your choices up and not erase, cross them off after you say they don't work, and box up your final answer so I know which one you want me to grade. Alright, so 14. How do I get 9d squared? Well, I could have 1d and 9d, 3d and 3d. negative 1 and 10, negative 2 and 5. Do that, guys. That's 2 points guaranteed on a quiz as long as you have all the factors. Now, if you forgot the 3D and the 3D or the 1D and 90, you're not going to get all your points. Now, I always guess the numbers that are closest together first. So my first guess is going to be 3D minus 2, 3D plus 5. That doesn't always save me time. So I do the outside to get 15D, the inside to get 6D. Together, that's 9D. Not what I want. Luckily, order doesn't matter right now because 3D and 3D are the same, so I get to move on and try negative 1 and 10. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do 3D minus 1, 3D plus 10. The outside gives me 30D. The inside gives me minus 3D. Together, that's 27D. Doesn't work. Cross it off. Now I'm going to try 9D minus 2, D plus 5. I do the outside to get 45D. I do the inside to get minus 2D. Together that's 43D. Doesn't work. Now remember, I can't cross it out until I put the 5 with the 9 and the 2 with the 1D. I do the outside to get minus 18D. I do the inside to get plus 5D. Together, that's going to be negative 13D, which is what I want, which means that's my answer. So your final answer is going to be 9D plus 5, D minus 2. Remember, order doesn't matter. You can put D minus 2 first. But most of the time, I think in the book, you're going to see the bigger variable up first. All right, 15, exact same concept. 3 terms, there's nothing in common. So none of these have had anything in common up to this point, which is why I've been immediately going right to my GPS. So negative 1 and 4, 2 and 2. Do that, guys. Do step 1 and step 2. I think everybody can get that far. It doesn't take a lot of math knowledge. It just takes a lot of trying. Now I'm going to guess whatever I want to guess first. Now, I could try 2y plus 2 and 2y plus 2 first. But see how those both have 2's in common? I already know this isn't going to work because if they didn't have anything in common in the original problem, they're not going to have anything in common in the parentheses. So I don't guess that. I mean, you could. You're going to find out it's 8y. But just to let you know, you don't have to waste your time guessing that one. Same thing if I try 2y minus 1 and 2y plus 4. 2 would go in common with 2 and 4. And since there's nothing in common in these 3, there's no way that can work. You could try it to get 8y minus 2y, which is 6y, so it's still not going to work. So there's no way 2y and 2y is going to work, and I have to try 1y and 4y. Now, if I try 2 and 2, which you don't have to, because same exact concept as before. 2 and 2, they would all have something in common. They don't have anything in common, but if you do try it out, it would give you 8y. So my really only option is 1y plus 4 and 4y minus 1. The inside gives me 16y. The outside gives me minus 1y. Together, that's 15y. It doesn't work. Now, you could try flipping it, but once again, they're going to have numbers that have stuff in common, and that's just not possible. So we tried all these. Not factorable. All right, number 16. Same thing, but right away, hopefully you see that you have perfect squares. So this is why I like perfect squares, because I always try the perfect squares first. So I'm going to try 7b plus 5 and 7b plus 5 before I try anything else. I do the outside, I get 30b. I do the inside, I get 35b. And I do the inside, I get 35b. Together, that's 70b. Is that what I want? Yes, so that's your answer. Now remember, you could also put it as 7b plus 5 squared. 17 is a very similar concept. 17 is actually easier because it's 2 terms. 2 terms should always be easy. If they don't have anything in common, which they don't, they both don't have an n, there's not a number that goes into both of them, you better hope they're both perfect, which they are. So 49 is perfect, n squared is perfect, so 7n and 7n is the square roots. 16 is perfect. 4 and 4. As long as there's a minus sign in the middle, this works. And it does. So I put 7n plus 4, 7n minus 4. Done. That's it for 17. (18), exact same concept. 9x squared minus 1. I have two terms. How do I get 9x? 3x and 3x. How do I get 1? 1 and 1. So I have a perfect square minus a perfect square. Remember the minus sign in the middle, so I get to do 3x plus 1, 3x minus 1. And that's it for 18. In numbers 19 through 23, you must look for something in common first. You should always do that, but I'm trying to give you a heads up that you should probably really do it in this one. Alright? Now actually, number 19 doesn't have anything in common. So remember, they're both perfect. 9 is perfect, so I'm going to do 3x and 3x. 4 is perfect, 2 and 2. There are other choices. Like I said, you could do 1x and 9x. You can do 1 and 4. But I'm going to try the square roots first. So I'm going to put 3x plus 2, 3x plus 2. The outside gives me 6x. The inside gives me 6x. Together, that's 12x. That's what I want, except it's the wrong sign. So I'm going to put 3x minus 2, 3x minus 2. I changed both signs. Remember, that's a good answer. Or you could put 3x minus 2 squared. And that's it. All right, so number 20, I have 18x squared plus 36x plus 16. All of these are divisible by 2. So they have a 2 in common. If it was just 36 and 16, they'd have a 4 in common. But 4 doesn't go into 8, so it's the biggest number that divides all three of them. I put the 2 outside. I have 9x squared plus 18x plus 4. Now, remember, I'm going to guess I could have 1x and 9x, 3x and 3x. How do I get 4? 1 and 4, or 2 and 2. Now, I personally would have guessed 3x plus 2 first. Remember, the number in front of the 2 is in common, always goes out in front. 3x plus 2 gives me 6x on the outside, 6x on the inside, which is 12x, which is not what I want. So that doesn't work. So now I'm going to guess 1 and 4. So I'm going to put 3x plus 1, 3x plus 4. So I do the outside to get 12x, the inside to get 3x. Together, that's going to be 15x. Now what I want, I have 18x. So that's not right either. So now I got to go back to 1x and 9x. So I do 2 and then I do 1x and 9x. I'm going to do plus 1 plus 4. That doesn't work because I get 4x and 9x to give me 13x. So I switch the 4 and the 1 to give me 36x and 1x to get 37x. So that doesn't work. I've tried it all, so I'm going to say not factorable. That's it for 20. So this is two terms. Remember, if two terms and they are not perfect squares, they better have something in common. They both have a u. That's the easy one to see. And then actually 6 goes into both of them. So I'm going to put 6 and u outside the parentheses. And what's left over? Well, I just divide. 6u squared divided by 6u is u. Negative 24 divided by 6 is minus 4. So that's my final answer right there. Alright, so number 22. All three of these can be divided by 4. So I'm going to put 4 is the greatest common factor. So I'm going to put 4 outside. I'm going to get 5x squared. 124 divided by 4 is 31, so that's why it's 31x there. 24 divided by 4 is going to be 6. So now I do inside the parentheses just like I've done before. How do I get 5x squared? 5x and x. How do I get 6? 1 and 6. I'm going to guess 5x plus 6, x plus 1. I do the outside to give me 5x, the inside to give me 6x. Together that's 11x. Not what I want. Now remember, I can't cross this off. I can't cross off and say it's not factorable until I flip it. So I'm going to put 5x plus 1, x plus 6. This time I get the outside to give me 30x, the inside to give me 1x, which is what I want. So that means that's my factored form. Now, there's one spot missing in this factored form. You cannot forget your number that you put out and begin with, or it's not, you didn't factor it completely. So my actual answer is 4, 5x plus 1, x plus 6. So don't forget to put the 4 outside front, in the front. Now, in number 23, I did mention during the fire starter that I never want the first term, the squared term, to be negative. So I notice that all three of these are divisible by 3, but I'm actually going to factor out negative 3, because that will make that positive. And I can do that as long as I change all the signs. So I'm going to put negative 3 on the outside. That makes this 12m squared instead of negative 12m squared. Then I'm going to have minus 16m, so change that sign. I'm going to have plus 5. So you're allowed to do that as long as you change all the signs. Now this is positive, which makes my life a little bit easier. So I have 1m and 12m, 2m and 6m, 3m and 4m. How do I get 5? 1 and 5. I'm going to try 3m and 4m first. So I put plus 1, plus 5. The outside gives me 15m. The inside gives me 4m. That's not going to work. Then I flip it. 3m plus 5, m plus 1. I get 5m and 3m, which is 8m. Not going to work. So that means 3m and 4m doesn't work. So I'm going to try 2m and 6m. So I'm going to do 2m plus 1, 6m plus 5. The outside gives me 10m. The inside gives me 6m. So it's the right number, but the wrong sign. So remember, my final answer is going to be negative 3. Remember, that drops down. I'm going to put 2m minus 1, and then 6m minus 5. So that's my final answer. Alright, so the next ones are all solved problems because they have an equal sign. So it must equal 0 first. So I'm going to start with 24. So right away, it's already equal to 0. There's nothing in common, so I immediately start factoring. How do I get x squared? X and x. How do I get 30? 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. 5 and 6 is 11. Remember, it's a negative 11, so I'm going to put x minus 5, x minus 6 equals 0. Since it equals 0, the zero to product property tells me I get to do x minus 5 equals 0, or x minus 6 equals 0. Now I just add 5 to both sides to solve, so it's just kind of like an easier version of the fire starter. Add 6 to both sides. There's my two answers. That's it for 24. So it already equals 0, so I just start factoring. Remember, there's two terms, so I hope the first one's perfect. It is. I hope the second one's perfect. It is. I hope there's a minus sign in the middle. There is. So I get to put a plus 7 in parentheses, a minus 7 in parentheses. Remember, it's equal to 0. Since it's equal to 0, I get to say a plus 7 equals 0, or a minus 7 equals 0. I subtract 7 from both sides. I get a equals negative 7. On the other one, I add 7 to both sides, so I get a is 7. Two answers. That's it. All right, 26. It must equal 0. So the first thing I do is I'm going to move the 54 over by subtraction. So I subtract 54 from both sides. I get z squared minus 3z minus 54 equals 0. And now I do it just like I did 24. So I do, how do I get z squared? Z and z. How do I get negative 54? Well, how about negative 9 and 6? So I get z minus 9 in parentheses, z plus 6 in parentheses. Set each of them equal to 0. Z minus 9 equals 0. Z plus 6 equals 0. I add 9 to both sides. Z equals 9. I subtract 6 from both sides. Z equals negative 6. And that's it for 26. U squared equals negative 9u is 27. Remember, it has to equal 0. So I have to make it equal 0, but I'm going to add the 9u to both sides. Remember, those aren't like terms. So I get u squared plus 9u equals 0. This is not a perfect square. Even though 9's perfect, since u is not perfect, u squared is perfect, not u, you cannot use the perfect square shortcut. But luckily, they both share a u. So I put u outside the parentheses. I put u plus 9 inside the parentheses because I divided both of them by u. Now I have two things. I get to say u equals 0, so I set this part equal to 0. Or u plus 9 equals 0. I subtract 9 from both sides. U equals negative 9. 27 is probably the most commonly missed problem just because people don't think of it that way. They forget about looking for something in common. Alright, number 20 is actually mislabeled, so it's on the back page it should start with 28 and then go 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, but I mislabeled it. But it's already equal to 0, there's nothing in common, so I say 3x and x. How do I get negative 8, negative 1 and 8, negative 2 and 4? I'm going to guess 3x minus 2, x plus 4. I do the outside to give me 12x, the inside to give me minus 2x, so I get 10x. Now I want negative 10x, so I'm going to change my answer to 3x plus 2, x minus 4, remember it's equal to 0. Now since it's equal to 0, I get to do this, 3x plus 2 equals 0, or x minus 4 equals 0. I subtract 2 from both sides on the 3x plus 2. I get 3x equals negative 2. I divide by 3. X equals negative 2/3. I add 4 to both sides. X equals 4. That's it for 28. Alright, 29. It's also goes as a fire starter. So 29 is going to be accuracy. So remember, 30, these both have an 11 in common. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 11 outside the parentheses. I'm going to divide both the inside by 11. Now, since it's a solved problem, I'm allowed to do this. I'm just doing that to kind of clean it up. It gets rid of the 11 inside the parentheses, so I get x squared minus 4 equals 0. Remember, that can be broken down because that's perfect and that's perfect. So it's going to become x minus 2, x plus 2 equals 0. So then I get to say x minus 2 equals 0 or x plus 2 equals 0. So x equals 2 or x equals negative 2. And that's how I get my two answers. And that's it for 30. So remember, it has to equal 0, so I'm going to add 10n to both sides, so I get 45n squared plus 10n equals 0. They both have an n in common. 5 actually divides by both of those, so I'm going to put 5n outside the parentheses. I'm going to have 9n plus 2 inside the parentheses. Now, even though this is in two sets of parentheses, you can think of it as two sets of parentheses. So I get to say 5n equals 0 or 9n plus 2 equals 0. Either way, it's two easy solve problems. N equals 0 is my first answer. I subtract 2, so I get 9n equals negative 2. And then I divide by 9, so n equals negative 2/9. Those are my two answers. That's it. So the last four problems, they wanted you to do it like this, where they wanted you to find A, P, and Q. And you could, if you don't like that, you can just write 0 and solve like I did beforehand. But I'm going to show you how to do it the way the book wanted it. So, factors of the first term, x and x, so I'm just ignoring that y. How do I get 16, 4, and 4? Remember, I want negative 8, so I'm going to write y equals x minus 4, x minus 4. Now remember, a, if there's no number in front of the parentheses, is 1. We don't trust anybody hanging out with our x, so that is a dirty piece, so it's actually positive 4. Q is positive 4. We don't trust anybody in the parentheses with their x. That's it. Alright, so 33, remember, I'm going to ignore the g of x. I'm just going to factor like before. 1x and 12x, 2x and 3x, or I'm sorry, 2x and 6x, 3x and 4x. How do I get negative 1 and 7? Alright, for the sake of time, remember, I guess this first. I do the outside to get 12x. The inside gives me minus 7x. That's the 5x that I want. Now, the rule about this is you can't have a number in front of the x, so I kick that 12 outside the parentheses. I'm allowed to do that as long as I divide everything on the inside by that. So I get x minus 7/12. I don't have to do that with the second set of parentheses. So now I have A, P, and Q. So A is 12. P is positive 7/12. Remember, we don't trust anybody hanging out with their x. Q is negative 1. So I'm not going to be able to do the last two, but it's very similar concepts. They're actually easier. And so if you can understand 33, everything else is easier.